Good evening. We'll call the regular meeting of the Plattsville Planning Commission on this date of May 13, I believe, to order. May 16th to order. If you'll all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll, please?
Commissioner Carter. Present. Chair Friend.
Here.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Here.
Commissioner Lepper.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Great. Glad to see everyone who's in the house tonight. Closed session report, none. Adoption of the agenda, item 4. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
I have a second.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. A reminder when you vote to please have your microphones on. Item number 5, consent calendars. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by general consent unless any commissioner requests a roll call vote or unless any member of the commissioner or staff or audience wishes to remove an item for discussion. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, which includes 5.1, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of May 2.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Microphones.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. No items are pulled from the agenda. Item number 7, items of interest of the public, public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes, and the commission is prohibited from taking any action. Anyone in the audience wish to comment on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close that item out. Item 8. Do we have any written items not written? Okay, thank you.
We have no written communications.
Written communications. Item number 9, presentations and educational workshops. I do not believe we have any. Very good. Moving on then to item 10, environmental assessment and public hearing. This is a site plan review for consideration of a revision to the approved site plan, and this is to construct a 24 square foot ground sign. Let's see, at location at 1008 Fowler Way. And I believe, Kristen, you have the staff report.
I do. Site plan review 82-18R2 is a request from the applicant to construct a 24 square foot ground sign and install 2 door signs of approximately 2 square feet each for the existing structure located at 1008 Fowler Way. Review and approval of signage for this parcel was identified in a prior condition of approval from both Site Plan Review 82-18 for the construction of the building in the early 80s and Site Plan Review 82-18R, conversion of the exterior from wood siding to stucco in 2022. The proposed ground sign will be aluminum with aluminum tube framing and a concrete base painted to match the existing structure. Sign copy for both the ground sign and door signs will be made of acrylic. Photo simulations of the proposed signs are included in the staff report in figures 3 and 4 and are also included in attachment 2. The proposed ground sign is within the height and square footage allowed in the business professional zone, limited to 6 feet in height and no more than 24 square feet. Including the 2 door signs, the total aggregate square footage for the parcel is within the allowed, based on the lineal frontage of 82 feet. It is staff's opinion that the project is consistent with the general plan and that the signage will support an existing business, will be of professional quality, and will comply with sign regulations within the business professional zone. Staff has further determined that the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act per CEQA Guidelines 15-311, as the project includes the construction of a minor accessory structure to the existing structure and use. As such, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the staff report as part of the public record, adopt the findings in support of SPR 82-18R2, and conditionally approve the project based on the findings included in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. This concludes staff's report on SPR 82-18R2.
Thank you very much for that efficient and quick staff report. Any commissioners have questions of staff? I'll start with Commissioner Smith.
Just a question.
Microphone, please.
By the 10th meeting, I'll have it straight. The question is, up at the top, the first illustration, you have the two signs, and then underneath it, there's a white board or white space. Is there some kind of board that's going to be there in addition to the sign?
It's a concrete base, so the sign copy will be on an aluminum sheet. Our zoning ordinance requires ground signs to have bases to cover the poles.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lepper? No questions. No questions. Commissioner Carter?
Staff report doesn't mention anything about lighting. Is this sign's not going to have any lighting?
The sign does not have any lighting.
Okay.
Thank you. Good question.
And then I had, I'm assuming that this is just coming forward from the last conditions of approval, but talking about the retaining wall and the materials for retaining wall, can I get some clarity on that?
It was a condition of approval pulled from the original planning process for the construction of
Okay.
the
So that's
professional
already
office.
been completed? And so it's
Yes.
just carrying forward because
Yes.
it's, okay, excellent. That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Very good. Vice Chair Keeney? Any questions?
Just a point of information, once they install the sign, then they'll be coming back with their landscape plan to finish off their project?
The landscaping was approved under the site plan review 82-18 back in the 80s. They have signed a landscape maintenance agreement. That was part of their prior approval that came before you last year. So it should be in progress.
Okay, so I did visit the site, and that, as the picture in the staff report shows, the ground is still bare, and so I would think they're just waiting to do this bit, and then they'll tie the rest of the project up.
Staff can certainly investigate.
Okay, and one other question. Since I did do the site visit, there's a small directional sign at the intersection of Fowler Way, the address of this property, and then Marshall Way going on up to the hospital. And it has, I think it has both doctors' names. And so it's small, it's a blue arrow, but it's one of those temporary signs. And, they need to take that down. That's not allowed under our sign ordinance. That's what kind of bothered me. And it does look temporary. Have you talked to the applicant? Do they think they're going to need directional signs to make sure that their patients can find them in this big building?
I don't believe staff is aware of that temporary directional sign, and it is in violation. And they had more than 30 days to have temporary signs that we permitted on the site, so we will cause that sign to be removed. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Well, I think, sure, certainly. I'm glad you can take care of it. I just, in looking at the conditions of approval, there's a statement that says if they need further signage. So if they think they need to have a permanent arrow, and I get that, the way the streets slope up, well, you're kind of expecting ambulances to come one way, because and just being there in traffic, I could see how patients might get lost. So I just wanted to bring that to staff's attention if they think they need that directional sign.
Is it near the stop sign?
There's a stop sign that's like coming down Fowler Way, and then you go through on Marshall Way. So if you were going toward the hospital from Cedar Ravine, you'd have to make a left turn.
Okay.
So right at the upslope is this small directional sign, and I understand they're new there. They're trying to get people to the right spot.
Yeah.
I just want them to know that if they need to put in something permanent, we'd be happy to consider it.
I believe that is actually not their parcel, so that would be off-site signage.
Okay. Yeah, I did not look at the property lines. I just happened to notice that. Okay.
That was
For taking
why I
care
was
of it.
asking you about where it was located.
So I understand that staff will evaluate this and take appropriate action.
Yes, now it's come to light that it is an off-site temporary sign, which is not permitted at all. So we will cause that sign to be removed. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? The chair has no questions of staff at this time, but has comments when we get to discussion. So I will open the public hearing on this matter. I will invite the applicant or their agent to come before the commission if they are here. Please approach the podium. Thank you very much.
My name is Earl Gibbings. I'm with the Pan Sign Company, and I'm the agent for the doctors, Major and Zeiss.
Fantastic. So you are responsible for the sign itself, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Fantastic. Okay, so the chair will reserve his questions. I'll open it up to commissioners. I'll start with the vice chair. Any questions?
Thank you for coming tonight to answer our questions. My question for you is the material that is proposed, the vinyl lettering and fixed with a special tape, VBH tape, I think it's called, and then silicone to seal it. In your experience with this material, is it durable, weatherproof, resistant to degradation?
It is durable and it's weatherproof, and the sign is fabricated from aluminum, which will not rust and which will be able to be cleaned very easily.
My other question is, I was a little surprised. It's brighter than most of the signage for the other professional buildings up there, but in your description, the background of this sign will be the same color as the rest of the building. So
That's
the two
correct, ma'am.
will match.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Very good. Commissioner Carter?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Lepper?
No questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
No questions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I don't believe I have any questions either for you, and thank you for attending. But please don't leave because a question could come up. Thank you.
Okay.
You have any comments you wanted to add, or?
No, I'm
Very good, sir.
I'm so happy that you could approve the sign for the doctor.
And again, it's not internally illuminated, correct?
There's no lighting.
Yeah, it's just a day. It's
whatsoever.
because it's only for daytime use.
That's right.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thank you so much. We'd encourage you not to leave in case a question comes up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else in the audience wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. The chair did actually have a question for staff. I should have made a note to myself. Going back to the landscape component, do we have any idea what landscaping was approved for this, what that's going to look like?
Yes, there was a detailed landscaping plan submitted.
Right, but it wasn't in the packet, right? And if it was, I didn't see it. And I didn't try to go, I don't keep the old stuff, I'll be honest with you. So I don't know what we approved for this. Any idea what was approved for this?
This was approved in 1982.
Okay. All right. So I'm not challenging that. So then for discussion amongst my fellow commissioners, and I'm always reluctant to get into this, depending on what the landscaping is, I would like to see some treatment of the base. The sign itself is clearly very functional. I'm not sure, going to staff, and I was referencing the picture that was on page 4 of the staff report, and which is visible here. But if I go to page 6 and I look at the proposed project complies with zoning ordinance 10417, promote development of aesthetic and functional signage. Okay, give it 100% A+ on functional, clearly is. But in terms of the aesthetics, I would like to see some kind of treatment of the base that it's going to sit on, as opposed to just a stoic concrete base. That's all. I'm just going to throw that out there now. And it would also depend on what kind of landscaping is proposed there. And since that's already been approved, we don't have necessarily much leeway, but we do have leeway on what we might do with the treatment of the base. So I'm just going to throw that out to my fellow commissioners and see what they think. I'm generally reluctant to get into requiring things. I'm happy to suggest, but I don't like to require. But I wasn't happy with just how stoic it is. Boom, right there. Functional, yes, but aesthetics, I'm not sure it rises to the aesthetic component. So those are my comments on this item, and I'll leave it to my fellow commissioners for discussion.
I do agree with you. It is very stoic, straightforward, unembellished. But I was surprised when I drove up there. They have a temporary sign that has the same logos that we see, but it's very big, and I was startled because it's bright white, and so then I went back and considered what they're planning to do. And so in reading, the description, the plans that we received, I understand it's going to match the body of the building probably better than what we're seeing in this picture. But I do agree with you. I think it is it's stark, I think is the word I'm looking for.
Good word.
And the treatment, though, that I don't know what kind of treatment we should require. It's going to be in landscaping. It's going to have to be very durable in case sprinklers go off. Not
Sure.
just weather, but it does need to. The concrete base is good, but
Well, let me throw out the options. I think would be wood would not be appropriate. I think wood would deteriorate, but brick or stone, any type of brick or stone that might help that. Particularly if it was, I won't say local stone, but something that would resemble local stone, that would just kind of break this up.
That's
Commissioner Carter?
a good thought. Since we don't know what the plants are, I'm imagining some sort of low ground cover that could, like a manzanita or something,
Right.
that could, grow up and soften, maybe even halfway up, so
Right.
we wouldn't be seeing as much concrete as shown here.
That's why I was hoping, and I'm sure staff doesn't have this available, and no fault to staff, but again, it would be nice to know exactly, because I don't know that the landscaping plan, when it was approved, the sign was there, right? The sign wasn't part of that, so the landscaping plan was approved without any concept of what the sign would look like, and now I'm looking for some harmony between the two, and actually between the three if you include the building, and so I'm thinking something, or do we have any option to modify the landscaping plan at all with respect to the sign?
The landscaping plan is not before you, so there
Okay,
is no
right, so we
option
don't.
to review that, and that's
Okay.
why we didn't bring it.
Sure.
But just to give a little history on staff's review of the sign was originally presented to us it was more of your general style pole sign with two posts.
Right, we don't want
And
that.
basically, our code requires more of a monument sign.
Correct.
So we worked with the sign contractor. Basically, the pedestal that the sign copy portion sits on is to be either 50%, no less than 50%, but no greater than 150% of the actual sign.
Right.
That comprises the pedestal. So the purpose of this sign, and you may want to query Earl more about the color. I want to make sure that maybe if this isn't a correct or a very accurate representation of what the color is, but the whole idea, at least it was staff's recommendation to the contractor, that pedestal be matched and consistent with the building.
So I would like Commissioner Carter has his light on, so I'm going to defer to him, but then I think I want to ask a question of the sign agent. Go ahead, Commissioner Carter.
I thought I heard you say in the staff report that is concrete required as the base for that monument sign, or do they have material choices there?
They have choices. I mean, if this building had a lot of wood, there was nothing preventing them then from doing an accent on the base to tie to the building. Let's say, for example, the building maybe it had a flat stone apron that ran around the perimeter of the building, and then they could have matched that. But I think the building is a light colored, concrete primarily. So I think, and I don't know if this is going to be painted or not. I'll defer to Kristen if it's just bare concrete or if it's going to be concrete painted to
My
match the building.
understanding is it will match the building in color.
Okay.
I would like to ask the agent to come, the sign manufacturer to come back. Is the pedestal that the sign sits on part of your construction? Okay, great. So, oh, sorry, I had to have your microphone on. Oh, thank you. So you said yes, it is part of your construction. So at a minimum, we could do some earth tone in the concrete. We can color the concrete as an earth tone concrete. I realize that that doesn't necessarily tie in with the building itself, but you would be able to do that, I would think. Yes, you could color the concrete. Yes, that's not that difficult.
We can color the base.
What about, we're only talking about the base now. We're not talking about the rest of the sign at this point. What about the use of some stone in the concrete pedestal to break up the starkness of the concrete?
We will have to evaluate the cost of all of that.
Sure. Adding color is certainly very minimal cost, I think, right?
It is.
Yeah, okay. All right. The agent's not here to speak to cost, but, okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I think what I take away, did you have a question of the applicant or just?
Not of the applicant.
Well, let me finish. Let me just finish my point. So, at a minimum, we could require that the concrete have an earth tone color, right, to soften it a bit, and we could go so far as to request that the use of other materials be embedded in the concrete, also to enhance, not only to soften but to enhance. So I just throw that out to fellow commissioners for consideration. Commissioner Smith, you had a question, a comment?
Yes. One, I was thinking that if there was gravel or stone on the ground, circumventing going around where the base is, that would provide some visual relief, wouldn't be as stark. So that's part of landscaping. The other is I appreciate landscaping being raised, and I'll tell you why. Because the circumstances have changed. People are more aware of drought and water shortages and the way they landscape. If you go up Sacramento Street, all the way to the top, the straight line, at the very top, there is an office building, and they put on white stone that's not indigenous, and it really stands out. So that can tell us how landscaping can lead to unintended consequences.
Well, I appreciate that comment. Unfortunately, the landscaping
Is done.
component, is not before us. We have no idea if it comports. It's grandfathered in terms of whatever water restrictions are in place now. So we really can't do too much with that. We might be able to get away with requiring some gravel around it. My inclination would be at a minimum to require a coloring of the base, and if not, possibly adding some treatment in terms of stone or something. This is a very simple project, and I hate to complicate it, but at the same time, the pedestal base bothers me, just saying.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lepper.
I think that it's a good point, and I think I'd be most comfortable with the earth tone because it doesn't significantly alter anything. It doesn't require a lot more cost or analysis by the applicant. It's simply going with something that we've done repeatedly in town, which is to request earth tones in order to match the aesthetic of our town, which is in touch with the nature around us. So I think my inclination would be to go with an earth tone versus to require any kind of facade or anything like that of rock or involving things.
I think that's an excellent point. I would also say, and Commissioner Smith, your microphone is on. Did you have a comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
I'm not going to comment.
Oh, no comment.
It was just easier to
Yeah.
keep it on.
And just as a complete aside, and particularly for the newer commissioners, and I consider myself a veteran of this body. I really, when I got my packet, the first thing I should have done was ask staff to pull out the landscaping plan, so I could have reviewed it and then had that information here with me tonight, and I didn't do that, so that's just something as an edification for everyone. The chair, where I'm sitting, is I would be happy with a requirement for an earth tone coloring of the monument, and then nothing else. And I'm happy.
We should be careful with when we say earth tone. The the remodel of the building,
Yes.
as you go up Fowler Way, turn back around, it looks really nice. I remember when it was the pictures when it was the dark siding. Now it's light colored. It looks more modern, and I think most of the buildings up on Fowler Way have undergone some sort of restoration recently. They were looking very good. It's a different look than what I remember from years past. So earth tone. Keep in mind that the body of the building is light colored. I won't say white, but it's not tan or brown either.
Right.
So what? And then I'm also looking at. They've chosen a green and kind of an aqua blue, if you will, for their logos. What colors do you think might
right.
work?
I think that's an excellent point, and I guess my view of this is. I think people are going to see this not necessarily in connection with the building, even though there may be harmony between this and the building as it exists now. I think when people look at the sign, they'll see the sign, and we're only talking about the base. So I'm not talking about anything dealing with the coloration of the signage itself. I'm simply talking about the base. So I'm talking about maybe a gentle transition between the landscaping, which I can kind of envision what it is, and the signage. So I would say a coloration of a very light tan, just something other than frank concrete. That's all I'm suggesting.
The border, where it has the actual address, 1008 Fowler.
Oh yeah, that's great.
That's kind of a.
That's actually a slate
I'm not sure
gray.
what it's supposed to be, but it's a brown, and obviously it's been chosen to go with the rest of the logo.
That's a great transition.
So
that's a great, and as opposed to an earth tone, that's a great transition. I think it ties in. It actually frames it completely.
Yeah.
I would be happy with that, and I would put that. I would require that as a condition. Other comments from commissioners on that? Thank you for that suggestion. That's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? The chair would be happy for a commissioner to make a motion.
I have one
Go ahead.
procedural question.
Yes.
Where would we add that change? Would that be in the conditions of approval?
I would say it's commission approval, and I would put it as, and let me get there.
So just add that, okay. So we could add it.
You could potentially
Condition
add
of
it as
approval
condition
under
number 2.
attachment 1. I would make it 13, that the monument, the concrete portion of the pedestal portion of the monument shall be colored similar to the top portion of the sign itself. I'm going to ask the applicant to come back to the podium. Is there a technical name, sir, for that very top strip of the sign?
Not that I can think of.
Top border? Well, if we call it
Just
top
like
border,
it's just,
we'll call it the top border. Is that all right?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Super. Thank you. So the motion.
Staff would just add that the plans say it's a header, gray header to the
Gray header.
Gray.
Thank
Okay.
you for that. Okay, so the term of art is gray header.
Gray header. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Well, making that condition number 13, I will make an attempt to introduce a motion.
Please do so.
Chair, Fran. Flip some pages around here. I move that we take the recommended action in the staff report dated May 16th, 2023, adopting the staff report as part of the public record and making the following findings in support of SBR 82-18-R2 request, including that it's exempt from further environmental review. The project's parcel number is in a business professional zone. Number 3, that it's consistent with the Placerville General Plan Public Facilities and Service Element, Goal G. Point 3, conditionally approve SBR 82-18R2, located at 1008 Fowler Way, based on the project information and the findings included in the staff report, subject to the recommended conditions of approval included as attachment 1 of the staff report, and keeping this attachment 1 as written with the addition of number 13, the pedestal of the monument sign will be the same color as the top gray header of the sign.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Lepper. Additional discussion on the motion. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Carter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Friend?
Vice Chair who? Vice Chair Keeney?
Sorry about that. Looking at the minutes.
Throne is large.
Allow me to readjust my position in the chair so there's no confusion for staff. Would you like Chair Friend or Vice Chair Keeney?
Yeah, my apologies. I was reading from the minutes. Chair Friend?
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney?
Aye.
Commissioner Lepper?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Great, the motion is approved. Thank you very much for attending. There is a 10-day appeal process if anyone should want to appeal this, which I can't imagine they would. Thank you for coming to answer our questions. We appreciate it very much. Okay, moving on then to the next item on our agenda. Let me see. That would be continued items. We have none. And then new business. Special committee reports. A report by the Historic Review Special Committee of the Planning Commission, which was established at our last regular meeting. Before I open this item, it just kind of occurred to me, and for commissioners and for staff, that as opposed to this item being a new business item, once we establish one of these committees, which was the first time we've ever done it, that perhaps it should appear similar to, like item 9, presentations and educational workshops, as opposed to a new business item. So it would actually become item 13, right? If you were to do, we'd have new business, and then we'd have any special committee reports kind of thing. And if we were to do that, then that might also be something that would appear in the bylaws, should that, in terms of how we set the meetings. So that's just a thought that kind of occurred to me. No problem with it being under new business, but it seems to me that once we establish one of these committees, then it should have its own place on the agenda. I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel about that, but it just logically that seemed right to me.
I noticed the language in 13.2.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say.
I think Commissioner Carter and I may agree on that.
Yeah, 13.2 does say that updating members of subcommittee work, so it's already kind of...
Oh, all right, then it's there. But even then, because... And I admit that I didn't read that subtext language because I just see planning commission matters, boom, next thing. Is that where we would want that? It almost seems to me that once we establish a special committee, that the chair on his throne, the chair would ask for that committee to report out, and it should have kind of a special place on the agenda. That's just kind of my sentiment. Now, that may not be correct. So how do other commissioners? Commissioner Lepper.
I would think just to remind us that it's still formed. It might be a nice sub, like when it's ongoing, we could move basically what is now 12.1 as a 13.2 sub thing when it's formed. So while the committee is in play, I think rather than saying if applicable and then not having a reminder that it's still formed, it would be nice to have a reminder that it's formed, but I think under 13.2 seems like the appropriate place for that.
What are your thoughts about putting it under 13 but as its own, elevating it to a 13.1, 13.2, or 13.3?
I would have no problem with that. I think the only helpful thing would be reminding us or say, it's always for posterity, right, or for future people. So say I step down, 2 other people step down. We need to know that there's a special committee in play.
Right.
So rather than having it be a consistent item on here, when one is formed, having it be a subtopic.
Right,
And then
correct.
when it goes away, and we just have these two, rather than saying, say, 13.3, any special
No,
committee.
correct. I agree.
Do you follow
so
what I'm
I agree
saying?
with that, and the bylaws would deal with that. The bylaws would say if a special committee is formed, and I would actually put it as 13.1. If we have a special committee under matters from commissioners and staff, I think a special committee should be 13.1. And then that only exists as long as we have a special committee, and the bylaws would specify that. Does that make sense? So when there's no special committee, then the agenda would look exactly as it's presented. But if we do have a special committee, then matters from commissioners and staff, 13.1 would be that special committee. Then we would have staff reports and we'd have planning commission matters. Pierre, you have a comment on this?
Yeah, staff's comment would be, and staff apologizes, we missed that item 13.2 covers updating of members of subcommittee work when applicable. So
It's new
if
for
we
us.
have a working subcommittee out there, we would have it as a bulleted item under 13.2. And so when, following 13.1, staff will give its reports, then we go to the planning commission matters. Planning commissioners can provide comments or questions on certain things, and then we would actually have a spot for the subcommittee under that, and that's already in the bylaws. That's where
Right,
this language comes from.
that's actually my question. Should the bylaws reflect that I guess the question, should a subcommittee, when it's established, and this is all new for us, I mean, all the years I've been here, we have not had one, but so now we do, it's great. Should not a standing committee or a temporary committee, a special committee, recognizing it's a special committee, should it not appear on the agenda as a specific item, as opposed to being buried under 13.2 as it is? I think it should exist as a bulleted item.
Yes, staff agrees. That's what I attempted
Okay.
to say, that it would be a bulleted point memorialized in the agenda and also be memorialized in the minutes.
Okay, fantastic.
But it's under 13.2. It's already in the bylaws.
for tonight.
Staff would see no reason to further complicate the bylaws.
Well, I'm not sure.
I happen to agree with Mr. Rivas. I don't like to mess with bylaws, and we've already accommodated it. I think staff would understand in the future if the committee has a report. I don't know that you'll have a report every meeting, but if you should let staff know that it needs to be agendized, and then it could be. What would that be, 13.2A or 13.2.1, something like that, so that it is called out, and the public has a chance to review the agenda. If they want to come and comment on that, then that it alerts them to that.
See, I think that's the key point. So, first of all, as a matter of convenience, the bylaws are actually coming back to us, because there are revisions to the bylaw right now. So to me, when I was reading this, I was going, oh, this is the opportune time to make a change to the bylaws to reflect an activity which, again, we have never engaged in, right? So while we have the bylaws and they describe everything accurately as to how we've been doing business for the most part these past 20 years, the bylaws, I think, are missing, I won't say deficient, but they're missing a point when we have a special committee. And then you just mentioned something I think is very important, giving the public an opportunity to see something specific on the agenda they can comment on. Right now, the language is, this is an opportunity for the members to update or special committees or whatever. It's very, very general. I am of the opinion that if we go so far as to set up a standing or special committee, and I think we did a special committee in this case, if we do that, then I think that special committee should have a specific, whether it's 13.1 or 13.3, I don't care, but it should have a specific place on the agenda. And then when that special committee is dissolved, it would no longer be there. And the bylaws can be written to reflect that. And since the bylaws are up for review anyway, this to me seems to be a relatively easy change to make to the bylaws. so that when it could say something as simple as when under the subcommittee or special committee section, it could say when a committee is set up, it will appear as a regular item on the agenda under item 13, and then once that committee is dissolved, it won't be there. I mean, I think it's something relatively straightforward and not complicated, but I do believe, and I'm sorry to be long-winded on this, but I do believe it elevates the work, it points out the work of a special committee, and for us as well as for the public to look at that. So that's kind of where I'm at. We can't take action on it tonight, but I think it's something that I would press for when the bylaws return to us. Just FYI.
Yeah, Chair Friend, if staff could just further comment. Again, I think staff wasn't suggesting that the way 13.2 is written, you have Planning Commission matters, and it just states in italic what that is supposed to be, and that wouldn't cover it. We missed it. So item 12.1 should have been listed under 13.2 as a specific item. Okay. That's what we should have done.
No worries.
So just imagine that we had done that,
yeah.
And that's what we'll do in the future. The bylaws already cover subcommittee work to be spoken to under 13.2, so this will be a 13.2A or probably a 13.2.1, and we would just list. You may have other committees in the future, and that's how we would list it, but it would be clearly shown in the minutes.
Yeah,
as a standalone item.
And my comments on this was not a criticism of staff by any means.
No, I understand.
And actually, if you do 13.2-1 special committee report, I mean, that certainly meets my needs. I do think the bylaws should reflect that a special committee will be so agendized. I do think that should be in the bylaws. But that's not for our discussion tonight. That's for discussion when we bring the bylaws back. Now,
well, I think they are in the bylaws.
Okay.
Because that's where this comes from.
Okay.
But I would just say that this is consistent. The way we would do it is consistent with the way it's done on the council agenda.
okay, well, that's always it's always a good fallback position, sir. I would
Just
not argue
pointing
with
that
that
out.
position.
Not that you have to be consistent with the council agenda.
We're happy to
but
be
it is.
Very good. Okay, very good. Having said that, then right now we are under new business, 12.1, special committee reports. I will defer then to Commissioner Carter to see if there's been any activity on this since our last meeting.
Yes, we do have a couple of things to report. First of all,
And sorry, and for the record, you're on this committee with Commissioner Smith?
with Commissioner Smith, that
Fantastic.
is
Okay,
correct.
excellent.
Commissioner Smith, we rallied support for the Heritage Association, which had on its agenda to possibly close, to go away. So Commissioner Smith was able to rally support, including Mayor Saragosa, a member of the Board of Supervisors stepped up, a bunch of community members stepped up, and so we were able to save the Heritage Association of El Dorado County as an entity, and so that was a big win, because we felt that losing that would have been a hit to our efforts as a historic committee, because
I think that's exceptional.
Yeah, it really was
That's
an awesome,
really big.
and that Commissioner Smith deserves all the credit for that, because he really was able to rally a lot of support from the community to save that. So
Accolades for Commissioner Smith on this item. Microphone, sir. Microphone.
Just so you know, there's right now 3 historic groups in the area. The Heritage Association is the oldest, the one who, since I was around at the beginning, Marilyn Ferguson, the late Marilyn Ferguson, was a docent at the local museum and did great work in the area, described to me how the earlier registry of historic properties was done. That group got a $5,000 grant, and then the city matched it with another $5,000, and they commenced to do the work. So they came up with a product that they felt was not complete, but the best they could do at the time until they got more money. That's the origin of that, and why it's somewhat significant. Our conclusion was the more people who were devoted to looking at the history of this community, the better.
That's fantastic. And I presume this was done at City Council.
no, it's just a separate organization that it needed some more membership and some more support from the community to, the current board was, they were tired. They had
But
been
your
there forever.
engagement of Mayor Saragosa
That was just as a citizen.
That's well, not only as a citizen, but also as a representative
Yes,
of the special
yes.
committee. So again, which kind of speaks to the value, the credibility of the special committee, and you're being able to go and speak to him, which kind of gets back to our discussion of last meeting. Thank you. Any other accomplishments?
Yes.
I see a lot of notes.
Yeah, so my second point, I spoke to a member of El Dorado County Association of Realtors. Their next meeting is on Monday. They are going to begin working on local area disclosures to include historic district information to help realtors and buyers understand through proper disclosures the responsibilities that come with purchasing a historic home or building. That's going to be an effort that EDCAR is going to get together with the city and try and get more clear disclosures for historic, well, actually, it's going to be citywide, but it will include historic districts. And so that's a discussion that they're going to start at EDCAR to help us more clearly disclose to potential buyers and realtors in the area, hopefully eliminating people doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing with their historic buildings. So that's just beginning. I'll have more information on that after EDCAR's meeting. What comes of that and what progress they make. The last item from this period, Commissioner Smith attended the Placerville Economic Advisory Committee. They had an agendized item regarding updates to the historic inventory for the city. Part of their purview is their strategy 2.4 is to work with and support local entities to preserve and promote the Placerville history, including the Historic Advisory Committee. And so Commissioner Smith attended that meeting to make sure that we don't want to replicate efforts that are already in progress from other committees. They indicated at that meeting that they would not be addressing that item at least for this year and not in the foreseeable future. So I think that even supports more the establishment of this subcommittee because it's not being established or it's not being addressed at PIAC as they're currently formed. So those are my three reports from this week.
Well, and that was only 2 weeks ago that we established this. That's some fairly significant effort, I think. I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but I certainly would like to extend thanks for that. Commissioner Smith or any other commissioners have any additional comments?
Thank you for your work. I do appreciate it. Just to be clear, too, I was never against the committee, just thought the timing was maybe a little early. But I really do appreciate the effort that you put forth, particularly in the time frame that you did it. And it's a great start to, I think, what is all a priority for all of us. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
I just wanted to amend the comments to suggest that anytime I've made a presentation like to the Economic Advisory Committee, I never represented that I was speaking on behalf of this body or identified myself in that way. Those are separate functions. It's just that there's obviously a parallel interest. That's all.
But the chair would say that if an item comes up in front of a committee that you are attending that is relevant to the work that you might be doing as a subcommittee of the Planning Commission, it would not be inappropriate for you to say, I'm on a special committee of the Planning Commission, and here's, these are the things that we're working on. So don't hesitate. I would encourage you not to hesitate to use that title or weight or what is there's a word I'm searching for, the credibility, right? That you have vested interest, okay, and you're authorized. You're a member of a special committee. So I appreciate your participation.
Well, the good news is to know that it's been brought up and it's on their agenda a number of times for months. This last time it's officially off the agenda. It's not part of their priorities. So we don't have to be concerned about overlapping responsibilities or interfering in what they're doing, because the answer is they're not doing anything.
Right. I think that's good.
It's up to us if we want to.
So I want to go back to a comment that Commissioner Carter made, and then to staff as well, that EDCAR, you're going to be at the EDCAR, and EDCAR is going to be meeting, and we talk about this, and this is my position, and I'm going to ask staff to maybe report on when we're going to have the joint meeting. But here's one of my positions. First of all, I totally agree and support the city's position relative to historic districts and our preservation of historic districts. The issue and the challenge I have always had is it is the city which has expectations of owners of property in the historic districts. It's not the realtors. It is the city. And I support that. To that end, therefore, the city should have a list of responsibilities and expectations that can be given to property owners. In my view, that's the disconnect. I've always found it deficient to take the position, well, it's the responsibility of the realtor to let people know they're in the historic district. Okay, what does that mean? I believe it is the city's responsibility to have something that we can hand to. It should be on our website. It should be a handout that can be given to people. Hey, look, you're in the historic district. Here are the requirements and expectations that the city has of property owners in the historic district. The alignment of interest has to be between the city and the property owner, not between the realtor and the property owner. You follow what I'm saying? So just to comment on that, I'm hoping that I will make this point when we have our joint meeting, and I hope it's something that we can achieve. And if we have those lists of responsibilities and expectations, they should be on our website, and they should be readily issuable, dispensable, or handoutable. I can't come up with the right word, to people that live in the historic district. So that's my personal position on that. Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I guess I was kind of just coming at it as more information is always better than less information.
Without question.
And I hope to have something at the next meeting, an update regarding what you were just talking about. I hope to talk with Pierre and maybe get an idea of what we can do, but that'll be forthcoming also. So this, just attacking it from all angles is kind of my thought process on this.
I think this is great. I think this is progress. Commissioner Keeney, your microphone's on. Do you have a comment?
I think we should have our microphones on all the time. We're being recorded.
My heavy breathing when I watched a meeting.
You know what? I only do it because it helps the chair know if I need to call on somebody.
I'll change
all right.
my practice.
So, any other comment?
I did have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with you in part. However, I think the city has already done quite a bit as far as letting the public know what the expectations are. It's very clear what's required. We've had had the comments before about how you can make it more clear to a prospective home buyer where the boundaries are, and there have been different ideas kicked around, and I hope that's something that we can maybe make some progress on when we have the joint meeting with the city council. What kind of signage would really be helpful? But I appreciate the effort from the realtors to help promote this, and but I think we need some clarification. Maybe look at what other communities do. That is it something that's listed on the title? How do you get this memorialized, codified, so that when property changes hands, that's carried along as part of the record keeping? But that I appreciate the effort on the realtor's part to try to educate themselves and then pass that information on to the prospective home buyer. In your meetings, I look back at the charter, if you will, for this committee. In the meetings, have you been able to garner any advice on how the Planning Commission should take on this responsibility of the Historical Advisory Committee? That is, that's where we began with this. Dad, you heard any comments? I appreciate the legwork you've already done and talking to bringing attention to this. Did you get any feedback on what we should be considering?
Not yet. I haven't addressed that area of concern yet, but I hope to in the near future.
Thank you. I think that in the short 2 weeks we've had this. So, Commissioner Smith?
Just to add, there's no preconceived notions. I think often people in representative capacities, whether it's a planning commission, city council, board of supervisors, Congress, whoever it is, it's important for them to listen to the public and get input. So casually what we talked about is we would be reaching out to broad specters of the community that have an interest in the subject. Realtors, developers, historic preservation groups, a wide number of people, and not have preconceived notions, because I couldn't answer your question as to what to advise with reference to the topic you just raised. And much more importantly, when you listen to the public, you get advice, you get guidance, and ultimately, whatever position you come up with that we recommend to our colleagues would have more respect from the public because we listen to them. And we don't have any preconceived
reminds
notions
me
about what
of-
they would say.
Does this committee need to keep a record and introduce that into our meeting minutes of all the people that you've talked to and gotten their input? What kind of record keeping is a committee like this required to do?
I would think a verbal report here is fine.
It's the verbal report, so we will, I mean, we're not going to do a transcript, but it'll be just a very brief reiteration of what was said by the committee members.
So just the verbal report is sufficient
Right.
for our records?
Yeah, just
Yes.
I think a summation of the groups talked to would be helpful to be able to go back and look so that in the future, when we're talking to groups like, oh, they have hit them, they haven't talked to them, would be helpful.
Yeah, the recommendation staff would have is that the committee itself keep very good record keeping of their actions, who they met, who they spoke with, what groups, all of that. The staff won't be doing that.
Right. The
in-
chair
in
is going to
these
look to
minutes.
Commissioner Carter to do that, as kind of the lead on this committee.
I accept that responsibility.
The question for staff is there anything that precludes the Planning Commission, going back to Commissioner Smith's comment, is there anything that precludes us from holding a public workshop on this item for members of the community to come and provide their input? Are we able to do that?
That's a good question. I would think that the Planning Commission is able to hold a workshop.
Okay, I would like, as not tonight, but I would like, particularly starting with our subcommittee here, to perhaps give some consideration to doing exactly that, right? To having a workshop for the purpose of not only educating the public, but also receiving input from the public, exactly as you described, because we are responsive. I'm huge on being responsive to the public and hearing what people have to say about this. So I'm glad to hear that that's within our purview to do. So,
Well,
Commissioner Smith?
Chairman Friend, earlier there was a suggestion about whether we should be giving reports now or wait until we had some kind of comprehensive report to give. Our philosophy is to be open and disclosing
Yep.
and let you know where our thinking is. There are instances when there's two persons meeting, the Brown Act does not require
Right, correct.
those records. And there are instances where what we ultimately want to hear from people is honesty.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
just look at what happened not long ago when there was a survey done of merchants on Main Street regarding the farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
And the city decided they will never do that again
Hmm.
because merchants told the council members, we're sorry, we volunteered because we get retaliation threats.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to boycott us, things like that. So what we want is candor. And we're not starting off with any preconceived notions.
Sure, absolutely.
That's the reasoning.
No,
for what we have
I
in
think
mind.
it's good.
And to be open and disclosing with you, because ultimately, it's not what we do, it's to be presented to the rest of.
And just so the chair is clear on this point, everyone, if we have a committee, I do expect you to come and report to us at every meeting any activities that you've had, and not wait for some final bombshell report. Okay, any other discussion on this item? If not, then we will move on to item 13.1, matters from commissioners and stuff. I'm sorry, anyone in the audience, before we do this, anyone in the audience wish to speak on this matter? I'm sorry. It's on the agenda. Seeing no hands raised, now we can move on to item 13.1. This will be staff reports.
Thank you, Chair Friend. I have a couple of items. Staff has been reaching out to different firms, basically architects that specialize in historic preservation. We've reached out to 4 different firms. 2 have already submitted proposals. We are reviewing those. So I would think that the time is coming near where we will then be working with the city clerk to schedule a joint meeting with the city council and the planning commission that was as directed by the city. So as far as if I may go back to the special committee or for the planning commission to hold a workshop, it would be staff's recommendation that that would happen following that workshop, because you may go in a direction that could be very different than where the council wants to go, because it will be ultimately the council giving direction to staff and to the planning commission on what changes they would want to make to the code. And so we would follow that direction, because that affects our budget as well.
Just to be clear, Pierre, do you want to provide some direction of the special committee at this point? Things that you want, that it's like it's okay for them to work on, and things you want them to wait on? I wasn't quite sure from your comment.
Yeah, it's staff's. I was mainly talking about the holding a workshop. The planning commission, not the special committee. I think the special committee is doing what it's supposed to do, and it's an information gathering committee.
Sure.
It's seeking out issues and problems with different organizations. And I commend this special committee for the work they've already done in such a short period of time.
Right.
So I think that's all well and good. We just wanted to inform you that things are moving forward in a positive, timely way to finally have this joint meeting we've been talking about for quite some time.
Right. That makes
We've got some
perfect
good
sense.
proposals, and so we're very happy about that.
Okay.
I had one other item. I just want to briefly talk about the requested modifications to the Planning Commission bylaws. We did consult with our city attorney. We received comments from the city attorney. It's going to take some additional some conference calls between staff and the city attorney. Unfortunately, there are some serious problems that have arisen. One, and I'm just going to highlight some of the basic ones. So these bylaws and the way the meetings would be run is, some of it were substantially different than how it's run at the council. Mm-hmm. And I remember the Planning Commission wanted consistency.
Sure.
But I think one of the major issues that ran throughout some of those comments is in regards to that motions would be passed on a majority of the entire membership of the Planning Commission. Now that's different than what's covered in state law, Brown Act.
Quorum.
A quorum. And so it's a quorum, and so we want to, we're going to, what staff will do is we're going to go through the changes is made, go over with county council or our city attorney, so we can get a good package we can bring to you for discussion on which ones are doable and which ones really are problematic.
Okay.
And so we do want to do that. So I'd give you an update on that.
As long as we don't eliminate that one that allows me to suspend the rules. That's my favorite one.
I don't think that one was changed.
Good. We used it
Road
last
is getting
time.
bigger.
I'm living large.
So unless Ms. Hunter has anything else to add, that's enough of my.
We will have a planning commission meeting on June 6th.
Great, terrific. All right, anything else from staff?
No.
Item 13, then 2, Planning Commission matters. We've already had the report from our special committee. Any other comments from commissioners to staff? Just one, and I shared this with Pierre. I actually left our last meeting. I was really kind of energized about how Robert's rules really came into play with some of the things that we were dealing with. And I did send to staff a link on Robert's rules, and I recall from a long time ago, we used to have a copy of Robert's rules available to us. So I sent them a shortcut. I think the staff's going to send that out to everybody, and it's just kind of fun to have. We don't get wound up with that too much, but sometimes Robert's rules come in handy. So I had a whole lot of fun at the last meeting, and that's all I was going to say. Seeing no other lights lit, the chair will go ahead and call for adjournment at 19:05 hours. All in favor? Aye. Microphones, please. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And I don't think the chair needs to do that. I just do it, but I think it's under the purview of the chair, but I
It's
don't.
the purview of the chair. You
People
do
say
not
my
need a
throne's
vote.
too big. Okay, so I called for adjournment. We're done. Thank you very much for attending.